A 2-month-old baby boy beaten so badly he doesn't survive. His dad in jail accused of murder. Tonight, questions about why DHS did not remove the baby from a violent home. CALL7 investigator John Ferrugia has been uncovering serious errors by the Denver Department of Human Services. And John, this is apparently another opportunity missed to save a child.
It is, Ann. 2-month-old DeAnthony Herron died of head injuries last July. His father, Michael Herron, is charged with murder. But until now, no one outside DHS and the family has known that the agency was involved and that there have been years of complaints and referrals and red flags, raising questions about how DHS could have allowed Michael Herron to care for that baby.
I get to the hospital and they have DeAnthony hooked up to all these wires already, and they have his head wrapped, and he wasn't even conscious. And I just broke down and I couldn't believe it.
Doctors told Amber Lucero that her 2-month-old baby DeAnthony had been abused by her boyfriend, Michael Herron.
He had a skull fracture. He had bleeding in the brain, and his brain was swollen and his skull was pushed up, and he had suffered from seizures and a stroke.
Doctors told her there was no hope of saving this tiny child who had been born bright-eyed and healthy. Amber and her mother held the baby, now with almost no brain function, for 2 hours after nurses unhooked him from life support.
And I just remember he went like that for the last time, and his head just rolled to the side, and that's when we just knew.
Do you think that Michael should have ever had those children?
No.
Our investigation has found that Michael Herron had a long history of mental illness, a police record that includes domestic violence and drug use, and a list of referrals or complaints to Denver Human Services that stretches back to 2002. In fact, a complaint was made to DHS when DeAnthony was born in May of 2014. At the time, the parents were living apart.
He started calling me names. He started calling my mom names. He started getting loud. So security came in.
Hospital security?
Yeah. And he was threatening to take DeAnthony and just leave that day. So that's when the social worker came in.
According to DHS documents submitted to juvenile court and obtained from the family, that social worker called DHS. Hospital staff concerned about Mr. Herron's ability to care for DeAnthony and was very angry at the hospital. And there was a second call the following day by an unlisted party. The complaints were not accepted and unfounded. Michael Herron took home the newborn to care for him and his other 2-year-old son.
The way he is with his temper and his attitude, I don't think that he should have the kids.
On July 15th, DHS was called again, heard Mr. Herron screaming at the kids. The next day, his 2-year-old son had a scratch on his face. DHS opened a case for physical abuse, but sources familiar with the investigation say it is unclear whether the caseworker actually met face-to-face with Herron or the children. And DHS left the kids with Michael Herron. 5 days later, he is accused of beating the baby. And doctors found it wasn't the first time the child had been injured.
Because he had previous injuries that were already healing, that all of his ribs were broken.
Records show that DHS caseworkers and supervisors knew Michael Herron was a serious risk. In 2013, complaint founded for domestic violence. Mr. Herron was punching and choking Miss Lucero. Again in 2013. Complaint not accepted. Mr. Herron screaming at Miss Lucero and pushing her. Mr. Herron reports he does not know how to calm a crying baby. In 2009, complaint founded for sexual abuse for assaulting his daughter by a previous marriage. Herron was arrested, but charges were dropped as the child may have been too young to testify. And in 2004, DHS records show Mr. Herron is bipolar.
He started writing suicide notes when he was about 17, maybe 18, talking about he was going to kill himself.
Danny Herron is Michael Herron's father.
They took him to this mental hospital up here. I don't know what street exactly it's on. And that's when they diagnosed that he had bipolar.
He had bipolar disorder? He is guardian of his granddaughter who made the sexual abuse complaint against Michael Herron when she was 7 years old. The claim founded by DHS. Danny, does it make any sense to you that Human Services, knowing what they knew, gave him children?
No. I don't see why they would have did that at all.
Records make clear, and Amber admits, that the couple was often violent with one another. But even with all the referrals and complaints to DHS and the concern after DeAnthony was born, had you ever seen a caseworker from Denver Human Services?
No.
Never?
No.
Now, a couple of important notes here. When the baby was born, Amber was all but homeless. She was living in a motel. Michael was in transitional housing, so he had a stable place to live, so the baby went with him. Also, Amber Lucero has pled guilty to domestic violence against Herron and had a protection order filed against her in the past. DHS officials saying tonight they are prevented legally from talking about this case. Our investigation continues. I'm CALL7 Investigator John Ferrugia.